In the heart of Nairobi stood a mansion draped in luxury, polished marble floors, imported art, and a tall iron gate guarded by cameras and silence. It was the home of Mr. Darren Mwangi, a 39-year-old billionaire tech mogul, known for his cold logic and fierce business instincts. But behind all the glitter, Darren lived alone. No wife. No friends. Just employees, and among them was Nyasha, a 22-year-old poor maid who had been working in his mansion for 2 years. She was quiet, respectful, and always quick on her feet. Nyasha never overstepped her boundaries, except that one morning. It was a Tuesday. Darren was dressing up for an important business trip to Mombasa. A merger meeting that could increase his wealth tenfold. As he adjusted his Rolex, Nyasha hesitated at the door holding his tablet. "Sir," she said softly. He glanced up. "Yes. I don't think you should go today." He froze. "Excuse me." Nyasha looked terrified but spoke. "I just have a bad feeling. I dreamt something strange last night. There was danger. About your plane. Please don't go." Darren stared at her in disbelief. A maid, warning him about a dream? "That's not your concern," he snapped, grabbing his briefcase. "Next time you try this nonsense, you're fired." She bowed her head silently and walked away. But a single tear rolled down her cheek. Darren arrived at the private airstrip, annoyed by Nyasha's interruption. Yet, her trembling voice echoed in his mind. Still, logic prevailed. Dreams weren't real. He dismissed it. He boarded the jet. Just as the engines began to power up, he got a strange call from his co-founder Jacob. "Darren, delay your flight. There's a leak. Someone's trying to sabotage the merger. I need to show you something urgently, and it can't wait." Against all his instincts, Darren ordered the pilot to stop. The jet powered down. Back in the car, Jacob handed him a tablet showing an email thread. One of their own board members had sold their internal plans to a competitor. The meeting in Mombasa? It was a trap. A setup to destroy him. He felt the blood drain from his face. And for the first time in years, Darren whispered, she was right. The next day, Darren returned home, shaken. He called for Nyasha. No answer. He searched the mansion. No trace. He called his staff. No one knew where she had gone. It was like she had vanished. He looked at her file. No photo. Just her name and date of birth. No emergency contact. Curious, Darren drove to the slum she had come from. He asked around. Old women there said. There was a girl named Nyasha, but she died years ago. Fire accident. Poor soul. Darren froze. That can't be. She worked for me, until yesterday. The old woman just nodded. Sometimes, spirits stay behind, to finish something important. Darren couldn't believe what he was hearing. He rushed back to the mansion and checked the CCTV archives. Footage showed Nyasha cleaning the floors, talking to herself. No one else ever responded to her. In every frame, she was alone. Darren, once proud and logical, now sat in silence. A girl had saved his life, not through strategy, not with power, but through a warning, through love. A girl who might not have even been alive. The next week, he announced something no one expected. He donated half his wealth to build schools in Nyasha's name. He opened a fund for maids and low-income workers to gain education. And in every speech, he said, "Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from those we overlook. Listen to the silent voices. They might save your life." Weeks passed, but Darren couldn't sleep. The silence in the mansion grew heavier. Sometimes, at night, he heard footsteps, a soft humming. The scent of fresh soap, the same one Nyasha used, lingered in the hallway. One night, as the rain poured outside and thunder shook the sky, Darren stood in the kitchen, sleepless. He whispered to the dark, "Nyasha, if you're still here, I just want to say thank you." A wind swept through the room, and a soft voice echoed, not through his ears, but through his chest. "Your heart was asleep. Now it is awake. That's enough." He didn't know whether to feel fear or peace. He chose peace. Darren had once been a boy in the slums. Before riches. Before the world called him Mr. Billionaire. But he had buried that part of himself, the one that cried when his mother died, the one that begged on the street. Nyasha had reminded him of his past, not just through words, but through her silence. In fact, Darren started visiting the slums again. He would sit with old women, eat roasted maize with children, and talk to struggling students. They told him stories. One girl, only 10, whispered to him, "I want to be like Nyasha. She protected people." He asked, "How do you know her name?" The child smiled, "She talks to me, sometimes in my dreams." One afternoon, while renovating the guest room Nyasha had used, a worker found a small notebook under a loose tile. It was Nyasha's diary. Each page was filled with simple writing. "Today, I made Mr. Darren's bed. I prayed for him. He looks tired. He shouted again today. But his eyes look lonely. I had a dream again. Fire. Planes. Betrayal. I must tell him, even if he gets angry. I'm not afraid of being fired. I'm afraid of him dying without knowing that someone cared." Darren read it all. Every page broke him a little more. He finally cried, not tears of guilt, but of healing. A few months later, Darren traveled to Zimbabwe for a tech conference. While there, he visited an old village for a break, just to breathe. At the entrance of the village was a shrine. On a faded plaque was written, "Nyasha, the girl who never turned away from pain." It was said she had once lived there long ago. Saved children from a fire. Died protecting others. And since then, travelers claimed they saw a girl, always barefoot, always silent, appearing to guide those who were lost. One elder told Darren, "When someone forgets their soul, Nyasha finds it and brings it back." He showed him an old photo from a newspaper article. The face was unmistakable. It was her. The maid who warned him. The girl no one believed was real. 1 year after the incident, Darren hosted an event at his newly opened Nyasha Foundation. Hundreds of young girls and boys from slums and rural villages gathered. In the crowd, he spotted a familiar face. A young woman, identical to Nyasha. She smiled, then walked away. He followed. But she vanished into the trees. On a nearby bench, a note was left. "You heard me when no one else would. Now, others will hear you. Thank you, Mr. Darren." Nyasha. Darren is now no longer just a businessman. He's a storyteller. A speaker. A believer in second chances. He tells the world, The maid who saved me wasn't rich, wasn't powerful, but her voice, her love, was the strongest thing I've ever known. If you ever feel a whisper inside you, don't ignore it. It might just save your life. Moral of the story: never underestimate the wisdom of the unheard. Sometimes, those we overlook are the ones chosen to change our destiny.